ever wondered why some women seem to attract admiration effortlessly? There is something magnetic about those who walk through the world with a quiet confidence, as if they carry a secret that others have yet to discover. Perhaps you have noticed such a woman. Perhaps you secretly envy her or admire her from afar. She does not appear desperate for male attention. She does not shape her existence around a partner's approval. And yet, paradoxically, she stirs the deepest interest in the men around her. The truth that few discuss is that this woman has discovered something fundamental: true emotional independence. She does not need a man to feel complete, and it is precisely this inner freedom that makes her magnetic. As Princess Diana once said, "A woman must be two things: who and what she wants." Diana, with all her vulnerability and strength, understood this duality. Even surrounded by the rigidity of royalty, she found a singular, authentic voice that echoed around the world. It was not her beauty or title that truly captivated millions. It was her journey toward authenticity, especially when she began defining herself beyond her relationships. You, like Diana, carry that same capacity for transformation. This narrative is not about rejecting relationships or hardening your heart. On the contrary, it is about discovering the depth of your own worth before intertwining your life with another's. When you awaken in the morning, before any conscious thought forms, there is a brief moment of pure being. In that fleeting instant, you are not defined by your relationships, by what others think of you, or by what you should be doing. You simply are. That essence, this fundamental awareness, is the core of your being that remains constant, no matter who comes in or out of your life. Relationships can be wonderful gardens, but many women make the mistake of trying to bloom in soils never prepared to sustain them. Have you planted your emotional roots in arid ground, hoping someone else would bring the rain? How many times have you dimmed your light so another wouldn't feel overshadowed? How many times have you silenced your voice for fear that your words might push away the one you most wanted to keep near? Psychology teaches us about self-sabotage, the internal mechanism that makes us believe we don't deserve fulfillment unless we are incomplete enough to be completed by someone else. It's a cruel paradox. The more you seek to fill yourself through another, the emptier you may feel. The space between who you are and who you could be is filled not by someone else, but by the journey of self-discovery. It is an intimate path that only you can walk. When you dive into the depths of your being, confronting shadows and embracing lights, something extraordinary happens. You develop a presence that transcends the desperate need for external validation. Imagine your life as a complex tapestry. For too long, you may have allowed others to decide which colors would be woven into the fabric of your existence. Now, imagine taking up the needle again, choosing your own threads, and creating a pattern that truly reflects who you are, not who you think you must be to be loved. Emotional independence does not mean absence of vulnerability. In fact, it is precisely the opposite. When you do not depend on others for your essential validation, you can open yourself fully without fear of losing crucial parts of yourself. In the process, it's the difference between saying, "I need you to feel complete," and "I choose to share my completeness with you." Boundaries, the invisible borders that determine how we allow ourselves to be treated, are expressions of our self-respect. A woman who sets clear boundaries does not do so out of rigidity or coldness, but because she recognizes her intrinsic worth. She understands that true love never asks you to diminish your essence in order to be accepted. Have you noticed how the healthiest relationships are not those where two people merge into one, but where two complete individuals choose to dance together? It's as if each person is a bright star in their own orbit, close without collision, intimate without absorption. There is something deeply transformative about knowing your own abysses and still standing at their edges, unafraid to gaze into the darkness. The emotional defense mechanisms you have developed over your life, the patterns that emerge when you feel threatened, no longer need to control your reactions. When you become a conscious observer of these patterns, you gain the power to choose different responses. A powerful stillness emerges when you finally understand that your worth is not tied to the presence or absence of a romantic partner. It's like realizing that the moon does not need the cloud's recognition to keep shining. It simply does, constant in its luminous nature. And here, as we share this moment of reflection, I feel we are building a community of women seeking this truth together. If this journey resonates with you, if these words touch something deep in your heart, consider joining this community. Subscribe to this channel and ring the notification bell. It's not just a digital gesture, it's a commitment to your own growth, a silent declaration that you are ready to explore the truths that can transform not only your relationships, but your fundamental relationship with yourself. The emotional bonds we form throughout life often reflect our earliest experiences of love and belonging. Attachment psychology shows us that patterns established in childhood can echo in adult choices. Have you ever wondered why you seem drawn to certain types of people, even when you rationally know they aren't healthy for you? Perhaps you are repeating a familiar cycle, unconsciously trying to heal old wounds through new relationships. True emotional freedom begins when you recognize these patterns and take responsibility for your choices, not as a heavy burden, but as an act of self-love, a recognition that you have the power to rewrite your story. Princess Diana, in her public journey, demonstrated this transformation before the world. After years of trying to fit into a mold never designed to hold her authenticity, she emerged as a woman who defined her own terms. "I don't follow rules," she said. "I follow my heart." This statement was not empty rebellion, but profound self-discovery. 7 signs of a woman who doesn't need a man to be complete. 1. She cultivates her own inner garden. She dedicates time to self-knowledge and personal growth. She reads, reflects, meditates, seeks therapy when needed, and constantly explores new dimensions of herself. She understands that before being someone's partner, she is her own companion on an ongoing journey of self-discovery. 2. She has clarity about her values. Principles are non-negotiable for her. She knows intimately what she values in life and does not compromise her essence for external approval. Her values are not written on sand, easily washed away by the tide of others' opinions, but carved in stone, resistant to emotional storms. 3. She maintains meaningful connections beyond romance. Her life is rich with diverse relationships, deep friendships, nurtured family ties, mentorships, and community exchanges. She understands that love has many faces and does not concentrate all her need for connection in a single romantic relationship. 4. She takes responsibility for her financial reality. Regardless of her current economic situation, she faces her finances with maturity and forward vision. She does not expect to be financially rescued and works consciously to build her material security. 5. She knows her emotional patterns. When sadness, anger, fear, or anxiety arise, she does not immediately seek to externalize or suppress them. She has developed the ability to observe her emotions with compassionate curiosity, understanding that they are messengers, not definitions of her identity. 6. She finds purpose beyond her relationships. Her sense of meaning transcends romantic partnerships. She cultivates passions, develops talents, and contributes to the world in ways aligned with her unique gifts. Her existence has its own direction that does not depend on having a companion. 7. She practices genuine self-compassion. In moments of failure, pain, or confusion, she does not punish herself relentlessly or seek external validation to restore her sense of worth. She has mastered the art of kindness toward herself, offering the same care she would a dear friend. When you cultivate these aspects of your existence, something extraordinary happens. The nature of the men who enter your life changes dramatically. It's not coincidence, it's causality. It is the difference between someone who approaches to fill a void and someone who approaches to celebrate fullness. Men truly worthy of admiration are drawn not to lack, but to strength. They don't seek someone to shape or fix. They recognize and revere a woman who has already done that work herself. There is something deeply attractive about a person who does not need you, yet still chooses you consciously. Think of relationships as shared gardens, not crutches. 2 people, each cultivating their own fertile ground, choosing to create something new together, not out of desperate need, but out of deliberate choice. It is this dynamic that sustains mutual fascination far beyond the initial phase of enchantment. Authentic self-esteem, not the kind based on superficial affirmations, but the one that arises from deep self-knowledge, is like a magnetic field. It does not attract indiscriminately. It attracts resonance. When you honor who you are, you create space where only those who can appreciate your true essence can stay. The emotional defense mechanisms we develop over time often function like invisible armor. They originally arise to protect us, but can become prisons that prevent genuine connections. Projection, denial, rationalization. These unconscious strategies may seem like shields, but are in fact veils that obscure both our view of others and theirs of us. Recognizing these patterns is the first step to transforming them. When you notice, for example, that you become controlling when you fear abandonment, or overly compliant when you fear rejection, you gain the opportunity to choose a different response. It's not about eliminating fear. It's about not letting it dictate your actions. Conscious vulnerability is different from fragility. It is the courage to show up fully, even knowing you might be hurt. Paradoxically, it is when you embrace vulnerability that you become stronger because you no longer depend on emotional security guarantees to open up. Imagine life as a flowing river. For too long, you may have tried to control its current, building dams to prevent your waters from following their natural course. But rivers always find their way, and the pent-up energy eventually overflows. When you allow your life to flow with authenticity, honoring your genuine desires and natural boundaries, there is a profound sense of relief, like finally exhaling after holding your breath for too long. The emotional bonds we form are complex, mirrors. They reflect not only who we are, but who we believe ourselves to be. If you grew up feeling you needed to earn love through performance, sacrifice, or perfection, you may continue seeking relationships where that dynamic repeats. Liberation comes when you realize true love does not require you to abandon essential parts of yourself. Emotional independence does not mean absence of healthy interdependence. After all, we are relational beings. We need connection as much as we need air. The subtle difference lies in seeking relationships that expand who you are, not define who you are. There are moments in every woman's life when she finds herself at a crossroads, to continue walking familiar, even painful paths, or to venture into unknown ones promising greater authenticity. This choice rarely comes in dramatic peaks. Instead, it appears in small, daily decisions. It is choosing to speak your truth when silence would be easier. It is setting a boundary when yielding would be more comfortable. It is honoring your own pace when the world demands you hurry. When you observe Princess Diana's trajectory, you see this evolution. At first, she was the shy princess, seemingly molded by the ideals of the institution that absorbed her. But gradually, she found her voice and began using it not just for herself, but for causes that transcended her personal pain. Her evolution was not without stumbles. She faced criticism, rejection, and profound loneliness. Yet in the process, she transformed from a symbol projected by others into a woman who defined her own meaning. Deep self-knowledge is like inner archaeology. You unearth layers of social conditioning, family expectations, and limiting beliefs to discover artifacts of your true nature. It is meticulous work requiring patience and compassion. Sometimes what you unearth can be uncomfortable. Dark parts you'd rather not acknowledge, desires that contradict the image you've projected for years, talents suppressed because they didn't fit others' expectations. Yet it is precisely this inner work that lays the foundation for authentic relationships. When you know your own depths, you don't need someone else to define them for you. You can enter relationships from a place of genuine curiosity, not desperate need. Society often romanticizes the idea of soulmates and halves that complete us, narratives that, while poetic, can reinforce the problematic notion that we are incomplete until we find the one. This perspective places impossible pressure on relationships, turning them into vehicles for existential fulfillment when they are actually opportunities for sharing and mutual growth. Think of the last time you felt truly free. That moment, when your actions flowed from your authentic desires, not others' expectations. Maybe it was a creative burst, or when you made a difficult decision aligned with your values, or simply when you experienced joy without guilt or justification. That feeling of inner freedom is what you cultivate when you develop emotional independence. The greatest loves in life are not those that rescue us from ourselves, but those that invite us to a more expansive version of who we already are. They do not fill voids. They celebrate fullness. They do not fix wounds. They accompany the healing process. There is a calm that emerges when you stop seeking validation like oxygen. It is like finally realizing you've been carrying unnecessary weight for so long that your muscles adapted, and then, upon letting it go, feeling an almost disorienting lightness. That approving look from a specific man, the text that confirms your value, the relationship that proves you are worthy of love, these things lose their absolute power when you develop an inner dialogue based on self-knowledge and self-compassion. Women who do not depend emotionally on a man are not cold or inaccessible. In fact, they are capable of much deeper intimacy because they are not simultaneously managing a complex system of adaptation and self-erasure. They can be fully present in relationships because they are not also maintaining an image crafted to please. Remember, every relationship you have ever had has served as a mirror. Even the painful ones, perhaps especially those, reflected beliefs about who you are and what you deserve. Rather than lamenting the time invested in connections that did not bloom as expected, recognize the learning each offered. There are no failed relationships, only different levels of growth and discovery. You may have noticed some people seem constantly entangled in emotional drama, intense relationships, dramatic breakups, passionate reconciliations, a never-ending roller coaster. That emotional whirlwind can be addictive, creating the illusion of depth when it may actually represent anxious attachment patterns. True emotional depth does not require constant drama. It flourishes in attentive stability, conscious presence, daily commitment to shared truth. Building emotional independence is like learning a new language. At first, you stumble over words, mix up structures, revert to old patterns under pressure. But with consistent practice, this new language of self-love and self-respect eventually becomes fluent. You begin to dream in it, think directly through it, until one day you realize you're no longer translating in your mind. You are simply being. Psychology teaches us about differentiation, the ability to maintain your sense of self while in close relationship with others. Highly differentiated people remain emotionally connected without merging identities or losing clarity about their own desires and limits. It is a skill that evolves over a lifetime and forms the basis for truly intimate, mutually nourishing connections. When you cultivate this quality of self-defined presence, something interesting happens. You become magnetically attractive not only to potential romantic partners, but to all forms of opportunity. People want to work with you, learn from you, be around you, not for what they can get, but for the quality of connection you offer. The journey toward emotional independence is not linear. There will be days when you feel completely centered in your power, and others when old insecurities resurface with surprising force. In moments of relapse, remember that true transformation is not constant perfection. It is the ability to return to the path with greater compassion each time. Imagine your relationship with yourself as your primary one. Like any meaningful connection, it requires attention, honesty, patience, and celebration. How often do you pause to acknowledge your own growth? How regularly do you give yourself the benefit of the doubt you so generously extend to a dear friend? Emotional independence does not mean never needing support. It means recognizing that external support complements, but does not replace, your own inner strength. It is the difference between drowning and asking someone to hold your hand as you swim in deep waters. Women who develop this quality of self-sustaining presence often find men in their lives respond in surprising ways. It is not uncommon for a partner who seemed uninterested or distant to suddenly show greater involvement and admiration. This does not happen because you use some manipulative tactic, but because the energy of a woman who genuinely values herself creates a magnetic field around her. You may have noticed some people seem to flourish after breakups, while others remain trapped in cycles of bitterness or idealization of their ex. The difference usually lies not in the circumstances of the separation, but in the person's relationship with themselves. Those who built a solid foundation of self-care and purpose integrate the experience as part of their journey, not as a definition of their worth. The truth is healthy, lasting relationships are formed by two people who do not need each other to survive emotionally, but choose to be together to thrive. It is the difference between dependence and interdependence, a subtle but profoundly significant distinction. Think of the most admirable relationships you have witnessed. They were likely between people who maintained their own identities, passions, and social circles while creating a third space they shared by choice, not necessity. This quality of conscious choice continually renews mutual interest and respect. When you observe the paths of many remarkable women, not only public figures like Princess Diana, but also women you know personally, you notice a pattern. Often their most satisfying relationships emerged after periods of deliberate self-discovery. It is not coincidence, but consequence. The process of establishing healthy boundaries may initially seem selfish to someone accustomed to prioritizing others' needs. But over time, you realize clear boundaries actually facilitate more authentic connections. When you honestly communicate what works and what doesn't for you, you eliminate the resentment that arises from constant self-abandonment and create space for genuine generosity. There is a particular calm that emanates from women who have made peace with their own company. They do not fear solitude because they distinguish it from abandonment. They know that being alone can be a state of rich contemplation and self-care, not just the painful absence of another. This calm is palpable and deeply attractive. It is the silent glow of genuine self-confidence. Women who do not need a man to feel complete are precisely those who paradoxically most often attract partners who deeply value them, not because they employ strategies of unavailability or manipulative games, but because their self-determination creates a space where the other can see them clearly, not as projections of unmet needs, but as whole beings in constant evolution. This quality of self-determined presence is what made Princess Diana not just an icon of style or charity, but an enduring symbol of personal transformation. Her journey from a young, insecure girl to a woman who defined her own terms inspired millions, not because it was perfect, but because it was authentic. As she herself said, "I just do what my heart tells me." As we conclude this reflection, remember, the real magic is not being someone who needs no one, but someone who consciously chooses with whom to share her journey. It is about creating relationships from abundance, not scarcity, from choice, not need, from freedom, not fear. And perhaps the most beautiful paradox is this: when you cultivate emotional independence, you not only become magnetic to others, you also become more available for genuine connections. Because when you are no longer constantly seeking validation or external fulfillment, you can be truly present for the dance of authentic intimacy. The woman who does not need a man to feel complete is not closed to love. She is, in fact, more open than ever to its highest expression. Not the love that confines, but the love that frees. Not the love that diminishes, but the love that expands. Not the love that demands, but the love that celebrates. And so, as Princess Diana demonstrated in her own life, you too can discover that your greatest strength does not come from who stands beside you, but from who you choose to be, each day, each moment, each breath.